Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my presentation. The topic of my presentation is American Realism. My name is Crystal Morales, and I am qualified to give this presentation because I have been teaching for the past 10 years. I have taught grades kindergarten through 9th grade. I also hold a credential as a Reading Language Arts Specialist and have a master's in Reading Language Arts. Before I begin my presentation, I would like to ask you what you know about American Realism. Because my time is limited, I ask that you hold your questions till the end of my presentation. Okay, during my presentation, I will talk to you about three things. First, I will begin with the literary period. I'll move on to the historical period, and finally, explain a literary hero. Let's begin talking about the literary period. American Realism begins with the ending of the Civil War. During this time, America was going through a lot of change. The authors at this time would often write about the change going on, and they would concentrate on themes such as individual freedom, limited by society, or the effects of social change. The authors would focus on depicting the lives of common Americans. They would focus in on a region and use local vernacular throughout the novels. Now, let's move on to the historical period. As stated earlier, realism begins with the end of Civil War. Many changes were going on throughout America at this time. First, there was the end of slavery. The end of slavery led to the rise of industrialism. Because industrialism was taking over, many people are moving off the farms and moving into urban areas throughout the United States. The urban areas were crowded by people moving off the farms and also by immigrants moving to America. The tenements in urban areas were very crowded, and people were often living in poverty-like conditions. Now let's move on to the final selection called the literary hero. Okay, I'm going to talk to you about Huckleberry Finn, and the hero of this novel is Huck Finn himself. The novel is written by Mark Twain, and he wrote this in 1885. Mark Twain focused on the people that lived along the Mississippi 20 years prior to the Civil War. During this time, throughout the novel, we see that society accepted racism, and it was when slavery was still legal. Huck in the novel is characterized as uncivilized, underhanded, yet true to himself, his own moral code. He showed that he was uncivilized three ways. First, he was uneducated. Secondly, he was not taught manners. And lastly, he did not follow a religion. His underhanded ways are described throughout the novel. At the beginning of the novel, it's described how him and Tom stole $12,000 from someone in a cave. Secondly, when he's traveling up and down the Mississippi, he teams up with two cons, and he works along with them to steal food and money in order to survive. Lastly, he shows he's true to his own moral code because he feels that slavery is wrong, and so he helps Jim escape to the free states. At the end of the novel, we find out that the slave owner freed Jim. In conclusion, my presentation focused on American realism. My goal was to explain the literary period, the historical period, and a literary hero. Are there any questions at this time?